Hello there, I'm that gamer guy and welcome back to another video. Once again, it's been a while since my last video. If you couldn't tell by the flag, I am still in Vietnam, and I'm slightly aware that the backdrop and the angle of this video kind of makes it look like a communist propaganda hostage type situation. That's not the case. This is in fact my bedroom. Now I'll get into my YouTube absence in another video at some point, but for this video I'm going to be doing something a little bit different. If you weren't aware, we've entered a new decade. Goodbye 2010s and hello 2020s. I've actually had 2 New Years this month, as Vietnamese New Year was this weekend just gone. So as we enter this new year, I thought I would take a look back at the previous decade with 10 things I did in the 2010s. I'm going to take it year by year and just discuss where I was at that point in my life. To be perfectly honest, this video is kind of more for me and my own personal reflections, but most of you will only know me through this channel and through this YouTube alias. So hey, maybe this video will give you more of an insight into me as a person. So our journey starts in 2010, where I am 18 years old. And 2010 was probably the worst year of my life so far. I was in my second year of college, or sixth form if you want to call it that, and for the first time in my life I was dealing with an identity crisis. Predominantly sexual identity, but alongside that, or perhaps because of that, I was also struggling with my social identity. I didn't feel close anymore to the friends that I'd had for the last 5 years. So with both of these things combined, I went on a fairly self-destructive path. I was now old enough to legally drink, so I began drinking a lot. I didn't apply for university when I should have done because I wasn't sure if that was what I wanted to do. And then I didn't get the grades that I definitely could have gotten. And with that rather anticlimactic conclusion, in my mind, my experience of education had come to an end. So what now? Well, over the next 6 months, I was still living with my parents, I was working part-time, and I was trying to find myself. And I apologise for how wanky that sounds, but it's true. I was continuing to drink way more than I should have been at that point in my life, and I was continuing to struggle with my sexual identity. And as a consequence of those, I was trying to find myself in all the wrong places. Now, I'm not going to get too much into the sexual identity aspect of this story. Perhaps I'll address it in a future video, perhaps not. But what I will say is that over the course of the next year of 2010 going into 2011, I managed to more or less work out who I was as a person. I ended up applying for universities and was somehow successful in my applications. And so I had to decide whether I wanted to spend the next 3 years of my life in London, Brighton or Manchester, and I chose London. And moving to London is one of the best decisions I've ever made. I had one of the most exciting cities in the world at my fingertips, albeit on a student budget. I had a multitude of new friends to share my experiences with, but most importantly, I was living those experiences as my authentic self. And after several months of coming to terms with this new authentic self, on my 20th birthday in Frankie and Benny's of all fucking places, I sat my parents down and told them that I was LGBT. And so begins the coming out phase of my life. Now again, I'm not going to go into details of this in this video, please forgive me. But long story short, I was lucky with my family and friends and I had no issues. As for university itself, my first year, 2011 going into 2012, I really enjoyed it. My degree was in media and journalism, 2 things that I'm still interested in to this day. And to put it simply, I was living my best student life, partying almost every night and being hungover for lectures the next day. For my second year of university, 2012 going into 2013, I took my previous year's experience and somehow I turned it up to 11. Most people party less in their second year of university. I was not one of those people. I started a new job that I loved with people that I loved, but I was slowly becoming less and less interested with the academic element of my university experience. So much so that my grades for second year definitely suffered, and round about this time I entered into my first ever adult relationship. And with this relationship came a whole lot of life lessons that I don't think I was ready for. I'd never been in love before, so I didn't know what to expect. And anybody can tell you that maintaining a relationship is hard, but maintaining a long distance relationship, well, fuck me. My third and final year of university, 2013 going into 2014, was hard. By this point I had lost most of my interest in my degree. I was starting to place emphasis on my relationship and on my job, and I came about this close to dropping out. But in the end it was my partner that convinced me to stick with it. I worked hard, or at least I think I worked as hard as I could have done at that point in my life. I rewrote the majority of my papers from second year, as well as writing my papers and dissertation from third year, and in 2014 I graduated with upper second class honours. So So I finished with university, but I didn't quite feel finished with London. However, by this point I had been in a relationship for a year, and the long distance aspect of it was beginning to take its toll. And after much deliberation, I decided that the best thing for the relationship was for me to leave London. So I left London, I left my job, left my friends, and I moved to Brighton. Now you're possibly thinking, London to Brighton? That's not long distance, get a grip. And you may well be right, but for this relationship, long distance was not working. Even if that long distance is 50 minutes by train, long distance was not working, and I wanted this relationship to work. So I moved to Brighton. I moved in with my partner and his friends, and after about 2 or 3 months of living in Brighton, I found out that my partner had cheated on me. Now I'm not going to discuss the next chapter of this story in this video or another video. All you need to know is that I had a very unhappy 6 months, and in hindsight those 6 months taught me more about myself as a person than anything else has ever done. Cut to mid-2015 and I am loving living in Brighton. I love my house, I love my job, I love my friends. Moving to Brighton for me was really a blessing in disguise. Despite everything that happened in my first year of living there, I now consider Brighton to be my home. If people ask me where I'm from, most of the time I just say Brighton. But towards the end of my time in Brighton, I realised that I'd become complacent. I was very much living in the present and not at all thinking about the future. At this point I'd been working in retail for over 3 years, and if you've ever worked in retail then you know that's 3 years too many. I wasn't really sure what I wanted my next step to be. So I decided to do what everybody does when they're not sure what their next step should be. I decided to go travelling. And one small issue with my decision to go travelling is that I didn't have the money to go travelling. And so, in 2016, after 2.5 glorious years of living in Brighton, I did what most of my generation have to do nowadays at some point. I moved back home. Now moving back to your hometown is never easy. It's remarkable how quickly you lose any sense of independence and fall back into the family roles of child and parent. But I started a new job and made new friends and tried to forge some form of independent adult life. But over the course of the next year and a half of 2016 going into 2017, I was very much aware of why I was doing what I was doing, living in my hometown, working in a dead-end retail job. I knew that I was going travelling, and after travelling I was going to do something, anything that wasn't this. I also became distinctly aware of the differences between myself and the friends that I had made in my hometown, both new and old. Many of my friends found comfort and complacency in a retail job, and that just wasn't me. I was enjoying my job less and less with every day, and I began to question whether the experience of travelling was even worth the unhappiness that my job was causing me. And so we reached 2018. I consider 2018 to be the year that my life really started. On my first shift at work in 2018, I quit my job, and not long after that, I went solo travelling around Europe. I had originally intended to travel for 4 to 6 months around Europe, but it ended up being around 2 or 3 months. But regardless of length, I had the best experience of my life. You can hear more about this experience from my Gaymer Travels playlist, a series that until recently I had forgotten all about, but I will now be returning to it very soon. And upon returning from Europe, I now had no doubt what I wanted to do with my life. I wanted to travel. So I began looking into the best ways of working whilst travelling, and time again the same answer came up: teaching English as a foreign language, or TEFL as it's more commonly known. I took a course to receive my qualification, and 2 or 3 months later, there you have it, I'm a teacher. After receiving my qualification, I'd hoped to practice teaching in the UK for a bit, just to see if I would actually like the job itself. However, it quickly became apparent that I would be unable to teach in the UK without first having experience abroad. So at the end of the year, I enrolled on an internship, and in 2019, bingo, I moved to Vietnam. Now I know I haven't discussed my experiences in Vietnam on this channel, although I do plan to in the future, but as you'll be able to tell if you follow me on other social medias, this last year has been the most amazing experience. I have seen things I never thought I would see, I have done things I never thought I would do, and I have met the most amazing people whilst doing it. And for me now here in 2020, those experiences look to continue. But I'll be discussing that continuation in a separate video. If you've enjoyed part 1 and my look back at 10 things I did in the 2010s, part 2 will be a look forward with 10 things I want to do in the 2020s. But for now, I will say thank you for watching. Please feel free to comment down below. I'm interested to hear your 10 things that you did in the 2010s. And with that, I will say goodbye. Please like and subscribe if you would like to see more. And if there's anything you'd like to see in a future video, then please leave your suggestions down below. And for the first time this decade, I hope to see you guys next time. But until then,